Hello, everybody. My name is Kester Nucum, and welcome to the Rural Journey Speaker Series. I am very excited to be with you all today to have this amazing interdisciplinary talk with an amazing speaker. Just a little bit about Rural Reimagine. Established in March of 2019, Rural Reimagine is Tennessee Tech's Grand Challenge initiative to unite students, faculty, and community members to support and transform rural communities through research, civic engagement, service learning, and entrepreneurship. So the Rural Reimagined Club, which I am the president of, is the premier student organization under the Grand Challenge to bring all disciplines together to build awareness and advocacy for rural communities. And this club has served as a platform for students to learn about the issues that face rural areas and opportunities to serve rural communities that involve their career or personal interests. So today we are doing the second speaker series session of the Rural Journey Speaker Series this semester. And this speaker series was created in the fall of 2020 and discusses cross-disciplinary issues in rural Tennessee. So last semester we have had media personalities, we've had K-12 educators and student leaders share their stories about how they became advocates for their local rural communities. Just a couple of weeks ago, we've had a sophomore human ecology major who is advocating for family and consumer sciences education, as well as foster care research. And in the audience, we have Daniel Hines, who is the co-founder of Brantley Marine Medical Devices, a senior here at Tech, who with Libby Baldwin Dukes started their own medical company that has gone and won many awards both here at Tech and at the state level. So we're very excited to have that talk. And today we are having Bruce Allen. He is the Executive Director of B Tennessee and also the Impact and Innovation Fellow at Rockridge Venture Law here in Cookeville. And we are very excited because as we emphasize, this speaker series is meant to bring speakers of all sorts of different disciplines who not only embody different disciplines, but embody that cross-disciplinary nature that is why we established Rural Reimagined. So I'm going to let Bruce introduce himself, and I'll just ask our overarching question, could you please share us your rural journey to where you are today?
Sure thing. Can everybody hear me? Good?
Yes.
Okay, sweet. Well, appreciate the introduction, Kester. Happy to be here. I think it's important for students from rural backgrounds to hear stories of folks from backgrounds similar to them. So my rural background starts in Sparta, Tennessee, which is a small town around 30 minutes south of Cookeville. Has a pretty bad reputation to Cookeville residents, unfortunately, but I'm happy to have been there. I come from a pretty modest background. Neither of my parents graduated from high school. Their parents, my grandparents, also didn't. But nevertheless, I pushed through at White County High School, which is the public high school servicing Sparta. There were no AP classes at White County High School. I rarely felt challenged throughout my experience, and I imagine that's the way that some of you have felt throughout your high school experiences. Nevertheless, I was able to perform well, and I think it helped me stick out from the competition. So this is one of the key points that I want to bring out of the rural journey. The first highlight is that I think my rural background really gave me a competitive advantage in the college admissions process. So colleges around the country are emphasizing diversity at a rate that we've never seen before. We've all seen this. It's inescapable to talk about diversity quotas, diversity metrics, etc. Most of the time, this conversation is framed around certain things like race and ethnicity. However, there's also a critical factor of diversity that includes geographic diversity, which is something that I think everyone here can appreciate. So colleges around the country are also looking for students from diverse geographical backgrounds. So, excuse me. I think I leveraged my background from Sparta, Tennessee to make a really compelling case for my admission to Princeton University. So I applied on a whim in 2014 and was ultimately accepted to Princeton. Don't ask me how. I have no idea. And I'm sure there were thousands of people who were much more qualified than me. Nevertheless, I was thrilled to accept the offer. And in 2015, I went up to New Jersey to start my journey at Princeton. So Princeton, that experience, I guess we can call this phase 2 of the rural journey, the escape, or there's probably a less pejorative term than that, but I don't even truly have the words to describe that experience. It was a very broadening experience. I was able to travel all over the world, including to Argentina, basically South America, Europe, Africa, and Asia, all on Princeton's dime. And those were amazing experiences, study abroad experiences. And perhaps I can go into a little more detail later on in the conversation. But throughout that time, I really came into my own as a student, as a peer, as a leader, and as an individual. It was a time of tremendous growth. And I don't think that this was unique to Princeton at all. I think college in general is a time in which people really learn a lot about themselves and about the world. So one important thing that happened during my Princeton experience is I actually came back to Sparta, to Cookeville, and interned for a summer at WCTE. And WCTE is the local PBS affiliate located in Cookeville. I interned there. I don't actually remember the title of my role, but I do remember what I did there. What I did at PBS was leverage their network to go around to different high schools around the Upper Cumberland to present to high school students about college access programs. College access programs are programs that are literally designed to help students from underrepresented backgrounds and underrepresented groups gain access into some of the top universities around the country. So they do that through leadership development training, academic preparation, writing instruction, etc. And I really wanted to bring these opportunities to folks on the Cumberland Plateau, the Upper Cumberland region. I thought it was important that people understand the opportunities that are available to them, because not only, are there free college access programs where organizations funded by donors will literally help prepare your college application and get you into a new university, but there are also many scholarships available to help high school students visit colleges around the country. So during the senior year of high school, I visited colleges in California, Maine, and Boston, totally for free. I didn't pay a dime. And it was because I had a network and an understanding of some of the resources that are available. So this is the second highlight that I want to pull out of the rural journey. I think I really developed a passion for connecting people to opportunities that are relevant to them. And I think in a place like this, in Cookeville, but also in rural regions more generally, opportunities can be hard to come by. And obviously the internet has democratized that in some sense, but there's still a huge gap in the resources and opportunities that are available for folks. So fast forwarding from that, I ended up, this experience, I would say WCTE enabled a reflection in my mind that I really wanted to devote my professional energy, devote my professional output to something that aligns with this purpose, that aligns with building up rural regions, that aligns with impacting the folks who have often been overlooked throughout the history of the nation. So I graduated from Princeton last year in the midst of a pandemic, actually, and by some crazy stroke of luck, found an amazing gig at a law firm in Cookeville. That law firm goes by the name of Rockridge Venture Law. It was started by a man named Kevin Christopher. He is a Putnam County commissioner and also patent attorney, and he wears a lot of hats. But ultimately, I ended up connecting to him through the friend of a friend, and our visions really aligned. So Kevin is formerly from San Francisco. He moved to Tennessee to establish this law firm, and he has a similar mindset. He wants to contribute to the development of rural regions. Rural economic development is something that we really bonded over. So he offered to take me on for a role as the organization's Impact and Innovation Fellow. And obviously that title is completely ambiguous. It literally communicates nothing. But ultimately what I do is try to plug Rockridge, try to plug our law firm into different ecosystems across the Southeast that are focused explicitly on rural economic development. So generally those take two forms, hence the title. They take impact ecosystems and innovation ecosystems. So in impact, you're typically talking about social impact. How can we drive good for a region? That's the simplest way to put it. And then innovation, how can you contribute to the development of new and novel ideas, techniques, and products? So Daniel Hines, who I think you mentioned at the beginning, sounds like the perfect candidate for the type of people that we would like to help at Rockridge, those rural innovators who are building the products of the next generation. One thing that I really came to realize throughout this role, and it's not going to come as a surprise to anyone, is that the vast majority of investment dollars in the US are concentrated on the coast. So when we're talking about investing in companies, the majority of dollars are going to companies in San Francisco, New York, and Boston. But recently, there has been a huge trend towards funneling some of those investment dollars to the interior of the country, to rural regions. And this is where I think I will continue to push forward into my career, refunneling, reallocating a lot of those capital flows that have historically gone to already wealthy, already very educated regions. I think when you have that imbalance of investment dollars, you naturally have an imbalance in the development of regions. So that's why New York and San Francisco have evolved at massive rates, and why certain folks still continue to get left behind throughout all of that. So that's where Micro is probably headed for the future, trying to support more rural innovators, trying to drive rural economic development, and prepare the next generation of workers who might be underskilled and find it difficult to adopt the next wave of technological advancements, like AI, for example, which we were discussing before the call. And one way of doing this that I've been involved in recently is through the establishment of a nonprofit called Be Tennessee. The goal of Be Tennessee is to promote and advocate for a new way of doing business that is connected to the B Corp model. So B Corp is a somewhat new term. Ultimately, the simplest way to describe it is a way of doing business that balances purpose and profit. So B Corp companies have a lot of stakeholders. Excuse me. They're only, they have goals beyond just maximizing profit for their investors. They also want to do good for the environment. They want to contribute positively to their community. They want to have good workforce standards and take care of their employees. So Be Tennessee is a way of promoting this new way of doing business, which I think is honestly the wave of the future. I think the previous way of doing business, in which your sole obligation is to maximize profit, is a little outdated, and I'm happy to capitalize on this trend moving forward. So I'm sure I overlooked quite a bit of the rural journey. I'm not sure exactly where folks like to hit on or what their high points typically are, but I'm happy to go into detail about any of the specifics there. But I think that covers a lot of it.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Bruce, for sharing your story. I know that's the reason why we started this series, because a lot of times we have a lot of seminars or lectures that are very content, very material heavy, very technical driven, and so that's why we wanted to create a different approach to the speaker series where we have we're focused on the narrative like yours, because a lot of the narratives that stick with us rather than all the jargon that's floating around. So, but touching on your story, so I also come from a very rural background. I come from a town of 10,000 people, kind of like Sparta, where the nearest town that was over like 50,000 was like an hour away, and so and a lot of, and as you probably know, with a White County where you're from, there's a lot of great potential. Some of the smartest, brightest, most potential students are in very rural, poor areas. But what would you say? How were you able to be empowered? As you said that your school didn't provide you sometimes the challenging academics, yet you were able to still find opportunities that eventually led you on to where you are today. Could you describe to us how you were able to find those, and maybe share upon other struggles that some of the people you've grown up with have encountered that maybe have, I would say, they weren't able to be as empowered to maybe go to college or find the technical or grow in technical skills or stuff like that. If that question makes any sense, or
Yeah, I'll share a few things that are relevant to that. So the first thing that comes to mind, and this is not an exciting answer, but I will say that I think my parents played a tremendous role in enabling this empowerment. I was blessed to have very supportive parents. I didn't describe them in the most colorful way. I said that they didn't graduate high school, and that's true. But nevertheless, they were always extremely supportive and also pushed me to work hard. So they have always worked very hard in their line of work, and they thought that I should do the same in my academics. And that's just something that always stuck with me naturally. So I think that I was naturally just working hard, and through that I came upon different opportunities just based on the circles that I was in. So trying to remember how I came across some of those free college visits, and I think it was just with other smart people who I had connected with on the internet. Actually, I think it was like forum boards for studying for the ACT. So obviously a strange tangent here, but I think the fact that I was able to connect with driven, ambitious people around the nation, I think that really helped me. I'm not highlighting Sparta or White County here as much of a source of empowerment, which might seem like a detriment, but I do think that a lot of the inspiration came from folks outside of the county. I think I actually watched a lot of PBS as well. That was the only channel that I had growing up. So PBS had a lot of educational programming, and they also would showcase national resources. I imagine that I found things through that as well. One other tangential point I want to bring up is that in the age of information overload, I highlighted the importance of the internet. All of us have seemingly infinite access to the internet. It really does take a level of wisdom to be able to curate an information feed that is not overloaded with nonsense. So I think at that point, when I was in that stage, there just wasn't a lot of nonsense on my feed. The internet hadn't taken the negative direction that it has nowadays. So being able to connect with the right resources, connect with the right people, finding a tribe that can support you and help you find resources, I think that was hugely influential. The second thing, and this highlights both something that I did and something that my peers did not, is to take risks. I think that a lot of my friends are very comfortable where they are. They're very comfortable staying in Sparta, for example, or staying in their rural region. I think this is a theme that we see regardless of the specific city. And there's not a lot of ambition to escape that, because once you move away from what's comfortable, it's uncomfortable. I mean, naturally. So taking risk is uncomfortable, and we all know that. I think the fact that we're here means that we've all taken some risk in the past. So I think that general mindset, I've always been driven by a pursuit of the new. So I've always wanted to try new things, hence a lot of my world travel and pretty broad background. So I was eager, in opposition to my friends who felt really comfortable where they were at. I was eager to try something new. I was really driven to, get out of Sparta. I will caveat that by saying I'm very thankful for Sparta, and it took me leaving this region to appreciate where I grew up. It's something that was very difficult to appreciate in the moment, and a lot of my friends still don't appreciate it, high school friends, that is. But once I left and came back, I really got to see the region in a new light, some positive, some negative. So, we are in the Upper Cumberland, is one of the most beautiful places in the world. Not to be arrogant, but I have been to a lot of places. So that is really saying something. It is an amazing geographic location, but at the same time, it really gave me the vision to see the lack of resources and opportunities that I alluded to before. So hopefully that answered at least one of your questions that was in there, Kester.
Oh, definitely. And I guess definitely, like, as you said, with just appreciating, the rural and stuff like that, because I know many of us who are watching this or who will be watching this later on recorded have grown up in rural areas, and there's that common theme of you either want to stay in there your entire life or you want to escape as much as you can. But as you alluded to, the appreciating. So
let me make one more point on that. I think a lot of people are eager to, as you mentioned, just want to escape. A lot of people develop cynicism about the place they're at. They just see their region, they see their location, and they think, this place is just rural, backwoods, there's nothing going on here. But I think the attitude of the cynic is very dangerous. I think the attitude of the cynic always leads to non-action. I think the attitude of the cynic only focuses on the problem. The cynic never tries to find a solution. And let's be honest, if you want to make an impact in the world, if you want to do good, you have to be solution oriented. You can't just dwell on what the problem is and just wallow in sorrow. You have to be willing, and that goes back to the mindset thing I was thinking about. I think I somehow developed a difference in mindset in which I was willing to be more solution oriented rather than just dwelling on the problems.
Right. Definitely. And that's, why we started Rural Reimagined, and that's why we are, we are here today to not only shed light on, these rural issues, but hopefully empower and inspire, people watching to go out and be those, problem solvers and, world changers. So thank you again for, helping shed, that light. So I do have a question kind of related to that. So I know something big that a big issue that faces a lot of rural areas and sociologically is the rural brain drain. So what are your comments on? I know that's a vague question. Comments on that, but obviously you're kind of in one of the rare, I say, situations where you went to Princeton University, and I'll actually tie in a question that we got in that we just got in the chat, like what have you seen in Sparta after traveling that you didn't see when you first lived there, and in that, what discoveries have you appreciated that your high school peers haven't? like, because you're in that rare situation where you went up to a very metropolitan, urban, area for college, but you came back to this very rural region and making an impact and promoting innovation, as you said. Like, could you shed light on that?
Yeah, I can. And then I say we should revisit the brain drain question as well. I think that's really important, and I'm glad you brought that up. To answer that question, I can think of a few different examples, some things that I did see and some things that I didn't see as a result of leaving the area. So the first thing is literally the physical reality that I already mentioned. I started to appreciate the geographical beauty of the place in a way that I never had before. And it's something we all experience. When something becomes normal and regular, we just start to take it for granted. So once I left and came back, I saw that. The second thing I saw was kind of a paradox. And this was an interesting one. So I found that due to the sort of organization of the city, the organization of the county, I found that there was much less of a feeling of community in these rural areas than I expected, which was very surprising. I think people would often think about it in the opposite. Rural communities would have a much greater aspect of interconnectedness and connection to the other community members. However, I realized that so many people are just dispersed throughout the county, and there's not a lot of opportunity for community engagement. There's very rare civic, event organization. There aren't really community organizations in White County. There's just not a lot of ways for the community to connect outside of church. So church was the huge social organization that I really saw as fulfilling that need. But outside of church, there just weren't a lot of ways for people to connect. So I found that to be an unfortunate thing. If I was still in Sparta, I think that would be the main focus area for me, trying to get more people involved. I might have alluded to this earlier with my brief tangent on the internet, but I think social isolation is one of the gravest issues that we're facing right now, not Sparta, but really throughout the US. And I think that dispersing people throughout the county and pairing that with addictions to smartphone and the internet really contributes to a lot of isolation and downfall of the sort of community structure. I think I'll end it there. If I thought for a second, I might be able to think of a couple more things that I saw.
Right, definitely. And I guess now we'll segue back into the brain drain, since you're one of those, a lot of people that, like, for example, I personally know there's a lot of people who, there's the two kinds of people that I saw when I grew up, coming into growing in high school, those who kind of, they'll only go to college that are kind of close by within a 30 minutes drive, because where I live, Paris, we're close to Murray State, UT Martin. They go there for college, and then they'll come back to Paris. And it was very easy for them because their careers are there's access in Paris for those jobs with like healthcare or business. But then there's people like me or other people who, and especially those at the top of their class, who I know students at UTK, Vanderbilt, WashU, Rice, like, who were from my high school, and it doesn't seem like as if they they're less likely to come back to their rural area because maybe the job opportunities aren't there, like engineering, or they have that cynicism, as you alluded to. What are your thoughts on the brain drain, and also maybe point out what are some of the things that you're doing right now as working at Rockridge and working in such a rural area where definitely post-secondary education there's post-secondary education opportunities for many people don't seem like a reality, but it definitely can be. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think brain drain is a really important topic, and one that limits the potential of a lot of areas. I think one thing that prestigious universities in particular excel at is plucking away students from their hometowns and ensuring that they never come back. So I cannot tell you the number of my peers from Princeton who are now in New York City or San Francisco and have no intentions of returning to where they came from. And that's a totally reasonable conclusion. Look, I mean, there's no moral attachment to that. It's fine to reach that, but I do think that it comes at the detriment to a lot of small towns throughout the country. So to think about how I'm going to address how Rockridge has touched on this first, and then I'll circle back. But I think that Rockridge is doing a lot to help promote rural innovation and to help bring legal expertise to an audience that hasn't historically had so much access to it. So, for example, Kevin Christopher, who founded Rockridge, is one of the only patent attorneys in the surrounding 13 counties. So if somebody wants a patent on a device, Daniel might actually correct me if I'm wrong here. His device might be patented, but I think it's pretty rare that folks are going to easily be able to access a patent attorney. I also think it's very rare if someone is looking for funding for their startup, for example, how are they going to find that? If somebody wants to deal with government contractors or talk about data privacy for their e-commerce business, it's like a lot of these things are really difficult to access knowledge on. The gist of what I'm saying is there's a knowledge gap that Rockridge is addressing by having its footprint in a rural area. And I think that's really important.